Alright, we're back again, and this is in 3D Coat. This is not the newest version out there, and I don't have the money to buy the newest version out there, but when I do, I probably will. There's a lot of cool things that I really love about this software, and there's a lot of improvements coming with the next part, or the next version, but I use it for retopology. Now, just to point out, you can do retopology in Blender, but there's a few things about 3D Coat that I like better than in Blender, and that is if I'm adding extra detail somewhere, if I'm adding extra slices and stuff like that, the vertices, which I'll explain here in just a little bit, they're going to snap to the surface of the object that I'm trying to retopologize. So let me explain what retopology is. Basically, you saw me subdivide that model into something that had a lot of polygons. Those are all those little squares, triangles, whatever, that make up the surface of that object. And it's not going to work for me that way, because it is too heavy. Like I explained before, it's just too heavy on the resources of the computer to do. And I wouldn't really be able to use or view large portions of the model that way. And so what we have to do is we have to redefine that topology and reduce the amount of stuff that is in the topology of that object. And how we do that is by a tedious process and sometimes semi-automated process of retopology, or putting a lower resolution surface on top of it. And how we do that most effectively is in 3D Coat. There are different things, there are different pieces of software out there that can do it, but actually 3D Coat is a treat to work with, and I really encourage anybody who's interested in doing sculpting and texture painting, UVing, or retopologizing meshes to do that in 3D Coat, because it's actually pretty fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell 3D Coat that we want to perform retopology, and I'm going to import a reference mesh. And that reference mesh, I'm not going to do the one that we just did before, the C4 vertebrae. We're going to go to C3 because I haven't done that yet. But I'll show you how I start out. So we're going to open this up, and right away, here we go. So 3D Coat can handle high polygon meshes really well. Now, I'm not doing anything with this mesh here. I can't really manipulate it in a way that why would I anyway? I need to use it as a base for everything else that I do for my retopology. And there are some cool tools that are in 3D Coat that make this process just a little bit faster for me. But to show you, all those polygons came in and they're smooth. This is what we're dealing with, and I want to make this simpler to look at, or easier, because right now, as we look at this mesh, you can't really see them too well, but every single one of these little squares is called a polygon because it has more than one side, and generally the type of subdivision that we did within Blender converts everything that it can into a square. So pretty much everything is like a quad or a quadrangle. It doesn't really look like it because it's kind of curved and all that other stuff, but there are four sides to every one of these polygons. And what we're going to do, and they're all connected, of course. The bounding parts of the polygon are edges, and each edge goes from point to point, or vertex to vertex, plural vertices. And that's how every single 3D object is made within a computer. Within any type of TV show or movie or anything else that you've ever watched, they're all made up of these polygons. And we call this massive polygons here that makes up the surface a mesh. Okay? That's generally the accepted term, is a mesh. And so some pieces of software can handle high density meshes better than others, but then when you start trying to do special things with it, it kind of falls apart. So if I wanted to do anything special with this and any other app, it would be very difficult to do because the app is trying to track every single one of these vertices and its relation to its neighbors. And so it gets very calculation intensive. What's going on here is pretty amazing. And so I like to go to the top view a little bit and to start this out. And I'm going to go to orthographic view, and an orthographic view means that it flattens everything out. It loses all of its perspective, and it makes it a little bit easier for me to deal with. And what I'm going to do is turn off the wireframe, because that gets a little distracting after a certain amount of time. And let's just get our workspace up just a little bit more, so that this is our central focus here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start doing the retopology. I'll just bring this up, and we're going to go ahead and start with the strokes option, because most of these are cylindrical. And so we're just going to start drawing strokes across here, and it'll find the curvature of this stuff and approximate it pretty good. I mean, there's going to be some cleanup that I have to do. That's just a part of the It's just a necessary evil. Usually I do this with my stylus and tablet to save my clicky finger here, because I've gotten to a point where I'm getting a repetitive stress injury from all the clicking, because I click a lot at work as a CT tech. And I'm clicking a lot here as a hobbyist of 3D art, and so the two, when combined together, end up making for a very sore, clicky finger. I might try to go around here a little bit. And so, if you haven't noticed, all I'm doing is I'm defining an area. I'm not going to connect those until later. I'm going to see how that flow goes here in just a little bit. But what I'm doing is with the orange lines, it defines the circular pattern around the object. And I'll look at it later. Like I said, I had to clean this up. And then the green path that I draw after that is telling it how to connect all that stuff together. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. If you're kind of following along and you're a visual learner, you can kind of get what I'm doing. And that gets me a good starting point of... Oops, got to get a different tool here to pan around. And so you can see that we have our base to go with, and we have all these different areas of different colors telling me that they're not connected to anything. They're not one solid mesh yet, they're all separate. And then what I do, let's see if I can use my pen thing here, because this is going to get a little bit crazy. I want to move vertices and just the vertices, and so I start moving them around, and 3D Code allows me to move these things around and stay on the surface. And I don't care if parts of it are poking through. That's not the main point. The main thing is that I can always change this at any time, and I can also relax the mesh, and then eventually it will follow close enough for what I need. And then you'll see all that stuff here in a little bit. And then maybe I can do this really quick to there we go. And now we're getting, oops, see, stupid tool, I had to go out here. And as you can see, it allows me to connect things pretty well. So, of course, when I use this and I'm in this tool, it kind of really makes navigation a little bit more difficult sometimes. I'm going to move those there. I want to get them a little bit closer just because, whoops, I don't know how that happened, but it popped through the other side. When it pops through the other side, basically how this works is that I have to think of this as a little ray gun, and it's shooting rays from one point. My little pointer tool here, or the cursor, it's shooting a ray from that cursor, and as you can see, it changes its angle, so it's looking at the normal or a line perpendicular to that surface. But there's rays being shot from there whenever it finds that little vertex there and it highlights. But if it shoots it off into the distance, it's going on infinitely, so it's kind of searches weird, and then when you have a high density mesh like this, it gets a little bit confused after a while. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep on doing this for a little bit. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because that would just be boring for you, but there are a whole slew of tools that I can use to get this thing done here, and I just want to kind of move that over there, and I don't like that there. And so what happens is that then I'm going to need something around here, which is good for the quads tool, and it's all about following, come on, it's all about following somewhat good topology practices. It allows me to draw stuff in there. And then I can move some of these to be in a better position, to better approximate their area. And this is actually a quad too, but I'm going to do it like this. But I can put a triangle. I can put triangles here. That doesn't matter. That's okay, I suppose. So, let's just do it this way then, because it's going to be a little wussy about everything, and then I can split it from here to here. And so as you can see, it gets pretty quick on retopologizing all this stuff, and that's what I do for that mesh to turn it into a usable mesh for my other purposes here. So this is just, you know, a quick and dirty thing here. I wonder if it's going to snap across there. It will. It also depends on how I'm, oops, shaky fingers don't help, of course. And oh, that looks like a quad. Interesting. So that's very interesting. So I don't need that one down the center like I thought I would. And then we just go on and refine the mesh even more. Okay, and eventually what ends up happening is I turn the mesh that's underneath with all this junk into the stuff that's like the green stuff. So we're going to eventually get to a point where it's a lot lower poly. Okay, and so when I come back, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about UV mapping and what exactly that is, and how I divide the mesh up into different sections to basically flatten it, and then we apply a map to it, and hopefully that'll explain some of the other portions of, or get us closer to understanding what the final outcome is going to be. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue retopologizing this, and then we'll be back here in just a little bit. Okay.